in an environment where there are trees are present, you're going to get much more of this beneficial infrared light than if you're in a concrete jungle. So plants like this. In fact, the way that we measure the forestation of the Amazon is through satellite imaging that looks at infrared light because it reflects infrared light back. So the best situation to be in is to be outside on a day where there's lots of green trees. We've known for decades that people who live in green spaces do much better in terms of diabetes, do much better in terms of hypertension, mortality, all of these things. Depression, all of these things, yeah. And when you think about this, you bring up a point in terms of correlation. How do we know it's not depression? We used to say, well, people who live in green spaces have more money. They have more access to things. Maybe that's what we're seeing. I just have to tell you this study. There was something called the Green Heart Study in South Louisville, Kentucky. They did an amazing thing. They took this 4 square mile area in South Louisville, Kentucky, urbanized area, and they measured everybody's HSCRP. What is HSCRP? Highly sensitive C-reactive protein. It's a marker of inflammation, and it's been correlated to bad things like stroke and heart attack. So if you have high levels of CRP, that's not good. So they measured about 700 people. And then they did something extraordinary. They purchased 8,000 mature trees, dug holes, and planted 8,000 trees into 4 square mile area. And these are trees with leaves on them. 2 years later, they come back and they measure all 700 people in their study, repeat the HRCRP, dropped by 13 to 20%, which correlated to about a 10 to 15% reduction in strokes. These people didn't change their socioeconomic status. They didn't institute an exercise program. And so really it kind of shoots in the heart the idea that the advantage that we see with green spaces has to do with something else that we're not measuring. I actually believe that, we'll talk about fresh air too, that things like these plants, but much bigger, this is kind of like a bonsai plant, but trees outside, they actually have a benefit. And what they represent, again, is these things that don't leverage the other parts of your body in terms of the chains, that make all of the chains bigger because they're having a benefit. But you can't get the benefit of this if you're inside a house.
So what should we do about this in terms of what changes should I make in my life to capitalize on this? This brand here is called Bond Charge. They do these red light devices. They do like red light saunas, blankets, masks. They're actually a sponsor of mine because I started wearing this and I think they found out. I started wearing it because of my girlfriend.
Yeah.
She was wearing it every day and I got curious. And so as I always do, I'm always super skeptical.
Sure.
So I went online and started looking at some of the research and I was shocked.
Yeah.
It made no intuitive sense to me that a red light mask or any like red light device could have a profound, what I see as a profound impact on my health. Like I didn't believe it.
Yes.
To start with.
Yes.
It was like woo-woo stuff to me. But I couldn't disprove it.
Right.
All the studies, many of which you've referenced, supported that it was having a profound impact. And as I've said on this podcast before, my girlfriend's always right. She's like always ahead of the curve and always right. So I started wearing her mask and now I have my own from Bond Charge.
Yeah.
Do you recommend these kinds of things?
I think it's reasonable to do. I will say this. If you are getting enough infrared light from the sun, what we find in studies, not particularly with the mask, but we find in other things, is that these other areas don't have as much efficacy. It's almost to say, if you're on a ship with a bunch of people with scurvy and you already have a diet that's rich in vegetables and fruits, eating an extra lemon is not gonna be that beneficial.
So what do you do?
Like a lot of doctors do, we have shifts that go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you're in the hospital, you're not gonna get outside. So at lunch, I try to get outside as much as I possibly can into the sun for my 15 minutes.
What if you live in a cloudy country?
So that's a good point. Clouds, because they are water molecules, will absorb a lot of the infrared light. And the problem is that that's exactly the type of light that you want to get. However, even on a cloudy day, being outside, you're going to get more infrared light than if you were inside.
Yeah. Okay, so I still get the light I need when it's cloudy, but I just don't get a lot.
Yes, exactly.
Is there anything I can do to get, if it's super cloudy, and I know I'm going to be indoors. What do I do then?
Yeah. So the type of lights that we have inside,
Like these ones.
like these, and actually, I think the UK and the United States are very similar in this regard, is that we really can't get the old incandescent bulbs. We're on LED or fluorescent. And if you think about what they've done in terms of these bulbs, the old incandescent bulbs used to give you a very broad spectrum. So all the way from just near blue all the way down into the infrared. The way that they've made the bulbs more efficient, they said, hey, let's stop using energy to give off this light that we can't see and give a very narrow spectrum of light that we can see. So think about what they've done. They have, for the first time in the history of humanity, we are now being exposed to light in a very narrow spectrum without anything else. Whenever, in the history of humankind, when we light a candle, when we would go outside into the sunlight, when we would have a kerosene lamp, we were getting full spectrum. In other words, we were never getting blue light without red light. Now we're starting to get blue light without red light. So
do I change my bulbs?
It's difficult to do that because you can't pick up these incandescent bulbs, which brings me to, at least in the United States, we have laws now that outlaw the regular selling of incandescent bulbs because of energy efficiency. Oh yeah.
I'm on Google now and I've typed in incandescent bulb.
So there's something called a general service lamp, which is what the type of bulbs that you could plug in. But if you decide that you want to get a bulb that you put into your microwave, or a bulb that you would do into a type of chandelier that's a special type of chandelier, those are still available. You can still get incandescent bulbs for those.
What about these kinds of bulbs? Is that an incandescent bulb?
That is an incandescent bulb, again, for these special type of lights. But I'm talking about the light, like the good old-fashioned A90, I think it's called, or light bulb that you just screw in. Those are the 120 watts. Those are getting more difficult. It's harder to find. You can't go down to your Home Depot and find them there. So Glenn Jeffrey, and this is a preprint that he's done. He actually took people that were working in this environment with LED bulbs. He's actually, it's not peer reviewed, it's not published yet, but it's a preprint. It's available on the internet. So I'm not speaking out of class. And what he did with 22 people is he switched out these LED bulbs and put in incandescent bulbs. And there was a 25% improvement in color differentiation in his study.
What does that mean?
They were able to distinguish colors 25% better than they were when they were exposed to LED. When I say LED bulbs, these are the bulbs that are high on the blue end. So why would that be? The retina, which is the back of your eye, when the light is coming in, there's these cones that are tremendously metabolically active. They're constantly updating, sending neural signals to the brain. And it's the one tissue in your body with the most amount of mitochondria. And it's because they have to supply a lot of energy. As somebody gets older, that mitochondria is not producing the same amount of energy. And so the ability of the energy that those cones have to draw on to do their work is less, and so they're not going to do the job as well. If you can perhaps increase the amount of output of energy from those mitochondria, you could improve the ability to visually perceive. And Glenn Jeffrey's done this study already, where he, for just 3 minutes, 670 nanometer light, very similar to that mask, in the eye, only in the morning, improved those people's ability to visualize and actually see.
And what does that mean for the broader picture of our health?
They would be able to distinguish colors better and actually improve their vision. That's basically what it means. And so the question goes back to the first question that you had at the very beginning of the podcast, which is, what is the effect of low energy output from the mitochondria? Well, it depends on what tissue the mitochondria is in. And so if it's in the eye, then it's going to be a better visual perception. If it's in the brain, it's dementia. If it's, see what I'm saying? So what we start to see is that a myriad of different diseases are affected by the sun. I challenge anyone to do this. If you look at a publication in the United States, I've seen it, where they map out the amount of deaths in a calendar day. Cardiac disease, respiratory disease, kidney disease, pneumonia, all sorts of diseases, infectious diseases, non-infectious diseases. You will see a very clear pattern. The maximum amount of deaths every year occurs within a month after the shortest day of the year. So we're talking December, January. We see the most amount of influenza deaths at that time. We see the most amount of cardiac deaths at that time. We see the most amount of kidney deaths at that time. So you might ask, well, that's because people get together at Christmas time and they spread the germs around more. And we have Thanksgiving in late November here in the United States, and that's what's going on. The problem is if you look at Australia, which is on the other end. So when is their longest day of the year? Their longest day of the year is in December. And that's when they have the least amount of deaths, despite the fact that they're all getting together for Christmas in December. So that doesn't fly. It's exactly the opposite. The most amount of deaths occur in Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere, in June to July. That's their winter. And so what you see is deaths are correlated to the length of the day. This is the reason why whenever they show you deaths in the year, they always have to seasonally adjust it.
And the length of the day is a proxy for the amount of sunlight.
Absolutely. You're much more likely to get sunlight on the longest day of the year than the shortest day of the year, especially when, and this is well known, there are some months, especially in people who are doing shift work, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., there's literally like December and January, you will not see the sun because you are going off to work before the sun gets up, and you're coming home after the sun is long set. So you're not able to see the sun. And so you could go literally weeks without seeing the sun at all.
Is there an optimal time of day to get sunlight?
Yes. So optimal time of day to get sunlight would be for those that are concerned about getting damage from ultraviolet radiation. As we talked about, when the sun is low in the sky, that's going to be beneficial because the ultraviolet cannot penetrate obliquely through the atmosphere as well as long wavelength radiation. So when the sun is coming up,
so in the mornings,
and when the sun is going down in the evenings, that's going to be the time where you're going to get proportionally more infrared light and the least amount of ultraviolet light. Now, when the sun is directly overhead at noon, you're going to be getting the most amount of infrared light at that time, but you're also going to be getting a lot of ultraviolet radiation. And so if you're not someone that's gone out into the sun a lot, you may want to avoid this period of time. Or, as we talked about, put on a broad-rimmed hat, put on clothes. I mean, more clothes, because as we said, ultraviolet light does not penetrate through clothes very well, but infrared light can.
Does it matter where the sun is hitting on my body?
Shouldn't.
So if I go outside and I'm wearing a big hat, it's obviously going to cover my eyes, my face.
Yes.
But it'll be hitting my legs.
For the purposes that we're talking about with the mitochondria, it will not matter. However, if we're talking about circadian rhythm, if we're talking about getting the circadian rhythm, that pathway is through the eyes. So you want to maximize light through the eyes. Yeah, so this type of a light is called a SAD light. So your question had to do with what part of the body does it need to touch? Or need to be touching. So for the effect of the mitochondria and the metabolic effects, it should not matter, okay? For this type of a light, though, what we're looking at is circadian rhythm. And that's a completely different system that we're talking about. That's not mitochondrial. That has to do with the internal clock that's in your brain that is regulating when all of these things in your body happens. And this light is about 10,000 lux. Lux is a way of measuring the brightness of light. And what studies have shown is that when you shine this type of a light into your eyes, it's the way of adjusting your circadian rhythm. You know how if you have a clock and it's not set to the right time, there's a little thing at the back that you can pull out and you can change the time?
Yeah.
That pulling out and changing the time about when things happen in your body is affected most by light. And light can actually shift it one way or the other depending on when you're shining that light. If you're shining the light in the morning time, and this is what a lot of people do, is they'll use these what they call SAD lights. SAD stands for seasonal affective disorder. These lights, especially in the morning, have a way of not only setting your circadian rhythm and making sure it's on track, but also reducing depression. There's a portion in your brain that receives light information. It's called the perihabenular nucleus. It's a long name, but it's back there. And if it doesn't get stimulated, it can cause depression. And so for people who live at high latitudes, further away, closer to the poles, where the sun is getting up very late in the morning and they're already off at work inside, this can actually be very beneficial. So what I would recommend doing, you can pick these up pretty cheaply on Amazon for about 20 bucks, but they should generally be about 11 to 16 inches from your face. And what people should be getting is about 3,000 lux hours. And what I mean by lux hours is you multiply the lux times the amount of hours that you're wearing it. So 3,000 is where you ought to be. Because this is 10,000 lux, you only have to look at it for about a third of an hour or 20 minutes, and that should be enough.
So is this a replacement for going outside?
It's a replacement for going outside because of the fact that you're living at a very high latitude and the sun is not up. And because of the job that you have, it's going to have that effect. But realize that this will not replace the effect that the sun has on your mitochondria. This is only to affect the effect that lack of sunlight has on depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what if I'm looking at the sun out of a window?
It depends on the window. So the window is going to be reducing the amount of lux. So I would not recommend, if you can, I would not say that staying inside looking out the window is the same as going outside. That's number one. The other thing that you have to understand is a lot of these windows, especially if they're modern windows, will be specifically designed to reduce infrared light.
I want you to give me any information you have
Yeah.
as it relates to light health
Yeah.
that will improve my life, things that I can actionably do tomorrow. Obviously, one of them is that I'm going to go outside and make sure I get some sunlight, ideally in the morning.
Yes.
We talked about this SAD lamp for people especially that live in certain countries which have less sunlight.
Correct.
To set their circadian rhythm and to help with things like mental health. Is there anything else I should be thinking about or can do or change?
Yes. So just like we had in our mnemonic of New Start, rest and exercise, both at the same time, and yet they're sort of like opposite of each other, it's important to have darkness.
Okay.
It's important to have darkness. And this is a real issue. This is one of the biggest issues, is the fact, there was a study that was published recently, and the title was Dark Days and Bright Nights. And that correlated with increased mortality.
I mean, that's how most of us live.
That's the problem. We have dark days and we have bright nights. And what we really should be having is bright days and dark nights. So just as important as it is to have bright sunlight and getting outside in the middle of the day, we also need to start working on getting darker nights as well.
And how do we do that?
Turning things off. Getting these screens away from our eyes. These are really important because the screens have a lot of light, and the light, what's going on here, this is the reason why it's important. There's two reasons actually, is the light that's going into our eyes is doing two things at night. Number one, it is shutting down melatonin production from the pineal gland. And as we just talked about, melatonin is a very powerful antioxidant that's very beneficial. The second thing that it's doing is it's confusing your circadian rhythm. You see, your circadian rhythm is designed to see light as day. If your eyes are seeing light, your brain thinks it's the day. So if it's 10 o'clock at night and your eyes are seeing light, your circadian rhythm is saying, I must have made a mistake. I thought it was 10 o'clock. It must not be 10 o'clock because look, there is light. And so what it's going to do is it's going to adjust itself and delay everything because it's saying, well, it can't be 10 o'clock at night. It must be 6 o'clock. And so therefore, when you would normally feel tired and sleepy at 10 o'clock at night, after a number of days of doing this, you're not going to feel sleepy until 1 o'clock in the morning.
These devices we have, they spit out a lot of blue light, right?
Yes.
Is there a way to turn that off effectively?
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of these come with tied to the clock, where after a certain time of night, it will shift its spectrum to a more red spectrum. So it's giving you less blue light. The problem is that while the sensor in your eyes are tuned more to blue light, it's not just blue light. So really the best solution is to turn off the light. The next best solution is to have more of a red shift, or put these glasses on at night. So these are blue blockers. They're trying to eliminate blue. But I'm still getting light in, and that's enough light to shut down melatonin production. So,
Even with those on?
yeah, absolutely.
But you're telling me these help?
They're better than not turning off the light.
And you're saying I still get light in because there's light coming over the top?
Even that light there is still going to bleed, and it's going to bleed into that part of the spectrum and cause melatonin to be shut down. Yeah.
So it's just the eyes are the sort of the barometer for
Correct.
what time of day it is?
Correct. And the problem is that even when you close your lids, light can still get through the lids.
What do you think of these sleep masks?
I think they're great in terms of the fact that we now know that closing your eyelids still can allow some light to go in. So if you're sleeping in an environment where light is out of your control, if you're living in the city and you can close your blinds, but there's still light that's coming in, these things could actually be very beneficial. I don't recommend night lights in bedrooms.
You don't recommend?
I do not. Even clock radios or air conditioners with LED displays on them. That's just like total light pollution to your bedroom. Your bedroom should be as dark as possible.
What if I have those lamps that don't have blue light in them? Because I think my girlfriend's put some of those by the bed.
Yeah.
Are they still not great?
Again, the best thing is no light. The second best thing is light with no blue light in it. And then the worst is, blue light.
What about candle light?
That's interesting. There was a study that was done where they compared someone reading at night with a book with a light bulb shining on it versus the LED, like a Kindle or whatever, okay? What they found was that there was a lot more light coming out of the Kindle than there was just reading the book with the lamp, and it delayed sleep onset. So
which delayed sleep onset?
The Kindle.
The Kindle.
Yeah. It delayed sleep enough to actually delay the circadian rhythm and shut down melatonin production. So the answer to your question is candlelight's great. The only thing I'd be concerned about is just the fire risk.
Yeah, because you fall asleep with that thing.
Exactly.
So the adjacent topic there was vitamin D, which we touched on a little bit. Do vitamin D supplements work?
Oh yeah, certainly.
They do work, and they've tested them.
Yeah, there's a number of studies that have come out. Martineau actually published in the British Medical Journal. This was back before 2020. It was a meta-analysis of randomized controlled